It's been 25 years since the first Final Fantasy was released, but far from being anything final, the series has got to the point where even the 13th sequel has its own sequel, Final Fantasy XIII-2.
Now we cross swords!
It's not the first time that a Final Fantasy game has had its own spin-off. Final Fantasy X and X-2 are both excellent installments in their own right. I'm not sure Final Fantasy XIII built enough of a connection to fans for it to warrant a sequel, which is a nice way of saying that everybody kind of didn't like it very much.
Well, as much as 13 was a bit of a disappointment for a lot of people, including us, I think the characters themselves were still memorable, so giving these oddballs and their universe another shot, you know, it seems fair enough. And more importantly, it was a chance for Square Enix to make up for such a dud installment.
13-2 delivers more what fans expect from this epic series, and the story is easier to follow, but it really shouldn't be. It's all about time travel and paradoxes and alternate universes.
If you change the future...
If you change the future, you change the past.
Yeah, and that's saying a lot. I mean, this was so much more coherent than Final Fantasy XIII.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yule said that changing the future will also change the past. Is this what she meant? The eclipse doesn't happen because we solved the paradox in the future?
Maybe, but we can't be sure.
I also felt there was an unusual amount of falling through the sky in the opening of this game. They just love to do that for some reason, don't they?
Odin!
And this is another game which does the previously on when you load up the save file.
The story so far.
We have to figure out the labyrinth.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and they've just kept it simpler overall. I mean, from the very first hour of playing, you know exactly what your objective is, who the bad guy is, and who's out to stop you. You take on the role of Sarah, the younger sister to Lightning, the main character from the last game.
What?
Joining you on your journey is a young man from 700 years in the future named Noel.
Not the most heroic of names, is it? Noel? Actually reminded me a lot of Sora from Kingdom Hearts, and I think it might just be the hair and the blue outfit, and maybe it's Square Enix trying to toy with our emotions when we have connections to other characters from their other games.
I think he looked heaps like Sora, and he's also typically pure-hearted, so you warm to him pretty quickly.
Should have called him Gary.
Your main objective is to reunite Sarah with Lightning, who's seemingly trapped in another dimension called Valhalla.
But she's living somewhere in the future.
So it's not just a dream, is it?
She's out there.
To do this, you'll need to travel back and forth through time and space with Noel, patching up various anomalies and maybe creating a few.
To change history is a sin.
Desperate to stop you is the guardian of the timeline. His name is Caius, which is much cooler than Noel.
I do feel sorry for Caius. I mean, really, he's just trying to do his job as he go creating gates and alternate timelines everywhere.
How many times must I see this?
Well, luckily he has the Soul Blade from Soul Calibur to help him. It's such a good-looking game, though, isn't it? I can't stop staring at it. Even 2 years after 13, beautiful.
It's so beautiful, and still some of the best hair in a video game to date. Makes me wish I had pink hair again.
Imagine the catastrophe. Think how many lives will be destroyed.
I love the time travel in this game, Hex. The way you bounce backwards and forwards between points and change the outcomes. It's a way of Square Enix saying, hey, this game isn't linear like the last one, I think. And it's true, and it's definitely needed. You just feel like you have all these different places to explore.
And the time travel could have been made so confusing, but it's actually quite straightforward here in the form of this Historia Crux, which is basically a map that lets you browse all of your possible destinations in time. However, to unlock a time gate to a new zone, you first have to find the artifact that acts as a key, which usually means beating a boss or solving a puzzle. On top of that, there are heaps of hidden fragments, and finding those can become a little bit of a collectathon.
Yes, there's 160 of those fragments to strive for, and that keeps you revisiting points in time that you've already completed just to find fragments you somehow missed, because you can wipe history and replay those sections again. You also get these fragments as rewards from side quests, and yay, the return of side quests.
If you see anything that looks out of place, please let me know.
Those side quests reminded me a little bit of BioWare's games, actually. They sometimes stretch between time zones, so the same location might have different stuff going on depending when you visit. And I really liked how this kept you thinking about where to explore next.
There's more variety in other parts of the game too, such as the dialogue options you get with the live trigger events.
She said I was the same as her.
Makes you feel like you're more a part of the storytelling rather than just a passive observer.
I thought so too. Also, those cinematic action sequences, QuickTime events basically, during cutscenes or a big battle, keep you interacting with the game, even as big events take place. I just feel like they've tried to make everything more involved this time round.
And yet, they brought back the auto battle system. One button. I had to dust out my, those birds that dip for water and just go forever?
Yeah.
I had to dust off my one of those so I could play this game again, just to get through it a bit quicker.
I know, it does get a bit monotonous, but I do think it serves the whole paradigm system though, because it makes combat more about the overall strategy of the fight instead of micromanagement. Bajo, it's not that bad.
That's what you do. That's how you play Final Fantasy XIII and 13-2. Oh, hang on.
Paradigm shift.
Yeah.
For those of you who didn't play 13, the paradigm system lets you switch the class of your characters at any point during a battle. With the tap of a button, you can change the roles your party members play, diverting them from melee attacks to spellcasting or buffing and healing, and any combination of these roles that you've actually customized. Your specific moves, stop it, are relegated to your auto chain button, which basically queues up the actions for you so that you can focus on your team strategy.
I don't like it. I just want to get down into the little nitty-gritty details of picking which abilities I want to use and the exact ones at the exact time. And that's what the benefit of a turn-based system allows. You have the time to do that. But it's just too stressful with that ATB bar just ticking away. You don't have the time. And I know that turn-based games are, evolving and changing to be a bit more reactive and to give you that kind of pressure. And I'm not saying that the paradigm shifting doesn't work. I'm just saying I don't like it very much. I want to get into it,
I agree that some battles can fly by in a bit of a blur. I mean, there's so much happening on screen at once, it can be a little bit hard to follow what's going on. But what about the addition of that new monster ally system? I mean, I thought that added a bit of intricacy to the combat.
Yeah, it definitely adds a new dimension to it. You can capture monsters, they can become a third-party member. It is a bit too laborious trying to figure out which monster you want to use because there are so many of them, so I just ended up sticking with the first one I found, a Kate Sith, the helpful healer.
I actually experimented a lot more with monster allies. I think you've got to have the patience to level them up and unlock their advanced abilities so that they actually become more useful. And it actually makes setting up those custom paradigms even more useful because you've got that extra role to utilize. It's always nice to know some weird blobby plant thing has your back. I actually found myself getting quite absorbed with this, which is something I really didn't find happening in 13. I enjoyed having more freedom of choice, and it was exciting to unlock a new spot in time and see what was going on.
What's happening?
The time travel may not play out as effectively as in something like Chrono Trigger, but it still makes for a pretty fun adventure. And, I really felt for Sarah, and I wanted to set things right for her, whereas in the last game I didn't care about anybody.
I'm sorry.
I agree this is a better game than the last one, but I didn't feel for these characters at all. I struggled to fall in love with this game, and I think part of it is because after Xenoblade Chronicles last year, I just can't love a JRPG that much again, It's really set the bar for me. And also that music, which you can't turn off, just drilling my ears. Just let me turn that battle music off. Yeah. Even with my misgivings, though, I think they are back on the right track with this Final Fantasy, mostly. I feel like they've listened to their community a bit. So I'm going to give this 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens. Hex.
Yeah, I agree with you. The music was so annoying and it was just always there. But overall, I think I had a really good time with this game, and it gives me a lot of hope for Final Fantasy's future. So I'm giving it 8.
Wait. I can change the future?
Yes.